I thought I would start us here at the Saatchi art booth and just wanted to say welcome and thank you for taking the time to be here with us on a Friday. I have three amazing artists that I'm going to take you along to see their booths. The first one being Stephanie Schneider, then Zan Patron, and Kristen Hart. If you haven't had the privilege to come to one of the other art fairs in person, I hope that very soon we'll be able to do that in person, but I am super proud of both the other art fair team and Saatchi to create this amazing webinar virtual experience. It's kind of a glamorous video game. And I just wanted to give a little bit of a background of what the other art fair is in case you weren't familiar. They have been in existence for 10 years. This March marks the 10-year anniversary for them. When this was in person, over the past 10 years, they have done 44 art fairs in 8 different cities, working with over 3,500 artists from 20 countries, which is just a massive undertaking, and have helped to facilitate over 32,000 artworks in sales just at the sites alone. The partnership with Saatchi came in 2016, where the overall mission was just to not share art in this 4-day fair extravaganza, but to continue that conversation. And so with Saatchi Art, with the other art fair, we are able to continue to facilitate showing emerging artists and bringing amazing collectors together. So hopefully very soon we can be in person and be sharing a really amazing Bombay Sapphire cocktail. And in this tour specifically, we're going to be highlighting 3 photographers, and we're going to be talking about photography. If you haven't had the chance yet to listen to Rebecca Wilson's talk from yesterday about Invest in Art, one thing that she highlights and I think is super important is that when you are thinking of starting your own art collection, photography is a great place to start. It can be a more affordable medium and can still have a very striking effect for your home or office or wherever you're wanting to hang artwork. I believe that art should be very personal and something that you really love. One of my favorite artists, Mark Rothko, is a great example of how there's many accounts of people standing in front of his paintings and having this emotional experience where they break down and cry. Not that I'm expecting any of you guys to start crying, which would be amazing, but I'm not expecting that. I just think that art is a very special thing that we can add into our life. It can bring joy, it can bring intense emotions, and it can really enrich our life. So I just wanted to give you 3 questions that might be super helpful as you are exploring the fair on your own of what you should keep in mind if you're starting your own art collection. The first one that would be good to keep in mind when you're looking at photography is knowing and asking what kind of photograph is it, or what is the medium? Knowing if it's a digital, an analog, or perhaps a Polaroid is really intriguing to know about the work that you're looking at and getting really curious about the medium itself. This is a great way to start a dialogue with the artist yourself and to know, let's just put my face here, and just to know what it is or how they produce their work. And each of the booths, which I think is super great, allows you to schedule a time to talk with the artist. So you'll have the chance to schedule a time where you can, ask all these personal questions about their photography and the medium and how they produce it. Another important question to ask is it a limited edition or is this an open edition print? A limited edition is just meaning that this particular artwork is done in a set of series. You'll want to know if it's 1 of 20 or 1 of 10, or if it's a mono print, if it's just the one. These are all important factors in knowing what you want to invest your money in. And the third question would be, is it unique? Now there's so many different ways that you can alter photographs. It can be with collage work, it can be done digitally. To create just this unique one-of-a-kind piece. So that is also a really great question and something to keep in mind while you're looking at photography. So without further ado, let's go see our first booth, and we're going to start with Stephanie Schneider. Okay. All right, Stephanie, you can go ahead and turn on your camera and your microphone. Hi.
Hey, hi everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Let's see here. Why don't you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Well, I'm based in California, but I'm originally from Germany. And I'm working primarily with outdated Polaroid stock. And I work mostly in narratives. I began with sort of snapshots of family and the new California I just moved to. And then these little snapshots became really apparent that if you just put them next to each other, they would be a little storyline.
Yeah.
And so I kept like making more and more stories. They became bigger and bigger and bigger till I ended up with a project called 29 Palms, CA, and it's all based in the desert area here. And I developed multiple characters, and they are all part of my Instant Dreams world, or my 29 Palms world. And I just
I love that series.
I keep adding to that narrative.
I've been familiar with your work for quite a while, and I think it was the 29 Palms that I first saw. I love just the color wash. I'm not exactly sure. I know that we've briefly spoken about that. A lot of your work is analog, I believe. Can you speak a little bit more about your art process and how?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm starting out with a Polaroid, like the regular little Polaroids for amateur cameras. Nothing like no large camera format, because I always need to be really spontaneous. And I, of course, have to set up all my sets and have to get costumes. So this is the first step to like build the narrative with the costumes, with the actors, with the Polaroid. And then when the Polaroid is done, then the real work really starts, because partially I'm editing them into movies, the single Polaroid. So each Polaroid has to be scanned, color corrected according to the original. And then I edit them into complete films, and they all refer to each other, or they just end up as a single piece, because all the pieces from a film are also single artworks, which work with or without the narrative. They also work just on their own. And I had actually a studio till last summer in Berlin where I printed my own work, and that's pretty rare. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah, I know that we wanted to speak a little bit about this piece over here. Can you tell me a little bit more about this artwork and what went behind it?
Well, this was actually my first shoot I had with where I actually worked with actresses, and that's Rana Mitchell. She's an Australian indie actress. And I just met them and asked them if they would come out to the desert with me. And a week later, we went to the desert with I got the costumes, the wigs. So that was the first time I actually used these kind of narratives. And later, this is actually the first photo of the 29 Palms project.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Let's see.
That was 1999. So till now, it has been a long time working on it.
Your muses are so cool. And I know we talked about this work here.
Yeah, the monologues underneath, they are part of the movie monologues, because I made this, this is part of the Till Death Do Us Part movie, which is also part of the 29 Palms movie, 29 Palms project. But so her, I met in a very crazy time in 2005. I had this like insane love affair. I lost my love. So all my work went into that direction. I tried to understand love. So I started this project Till Death Do Us Part with Daisy McCracken and Austin. And they were like this beautiful couple falling in love, living out in the desert. And that was the first shoot we did with that.
Wow. That's amazing. I love that. Are you in your home right now? Is this where you work out of currently? Is this like a studio or is this a living space?
Yeah, that's like that's like my small studio, like the California studio. I can just like show around. And I always have some of my artwork hanging around.
Yeah.
And but this is just like where I hang my work right now. I work out of 2 overseas containers because last year they doubled my rent in Berlin, so we had to leave. And so I packed everything into 40-foot sea containers, and that's where everything else is stored now for my studio in Berlin. So I won't be able to ever print analog again. Ever. I don't know, maybe one day I have another analog lab here. But, but it's like really, it's like takes so much time. If you just get a print and you have a print and you make it digitally, I send in the scan obviously to a printing place, and then they send me back the photograph. But when I do like analog, I actually have to take a negative from the Polaroid, from the original Polaroid. Then I have to try out the negative. If the colors are not right, I have to use filters to make the colors right and do another negative. They're large format negatives, like the same size as the Polaroids. And then I go into the darkroom and I do it totally like old fashioned, like in the complete darkness. And it's not like black and white. You can actually still see things. In a color darkroom, it's pitch black.
Wow.
And so that's where you then basically print with an enlarger onto the photographic paper, and then you put the photographic paper in the machine, and then it comes out in the daylight room on the other side. So, and then sometimes it can take a week till you have the finished print, because I'm very specific about the colors. So you would say like, oh, it's 1 magenta or half a magenta. So it's really intense work. So that's completely different than the digital work.
Yeah, it's very hands-on. You're creating all these different layers and chemicals, and you have to basically be a chemist in some ways.
Yeah, the process has to be perfect. So most of these are actually analog prints in the booth. Like Gestures is, the train is, Long Way Home. That is the last print we did, the Long Way Home, the second one.
This one?
No, the second one in the back. Yeah, that one. That is the last print we actually printed in my studio.
So how have you had to pivot during COVID? You said that you left Berlin.
Yeah, it was insane. I think I feel like I left California with the last plane to LA. It just started March last year. From LA to Berlin, and I got there and Berlin was completely dead, but I had a small crew, and for 4 months I took down my complete studio, which was like the super dream lab, and I actually demolished it completely because we have this horrible landlord. Not only he doubled our rent, but he also didn't want to give me 1 penny for the actual beautiful studio I created. So we completely crashed it. And even the wood now from places we created are here now, and they become a new part of the studio. It's really funny. Like they already built into like places here now.
So have you felt like you've been more or less isolated, or pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same. I've always been isolated. I live in the desert. I live here because there are no people, or less people. Well, more coming now, but
I hear that a lot from artists, that their life feels so similar because they're usually in a studio all day.
I usually, I have a little farm here as well. So farm work is a lot of work, and being with the animals, you don't really need people for that. And I only, and everything we did, get everything delivered. So before COVID, I left the farm maybe once a month, now less.
Wow. Well, that works out great then for you.
Yeah. And sales are completely up. I've never sold as much as since COVID happened, because I think people just have more money to spend, no restaurants and stuff. So it's actually, for me, pretty good.
Yeah, that's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, and I wish it would stay like the world would stay like that, a little bit less hectic, less flying. and people realizing that maybe they should have a home where they feel so comfortable that they don't need to go anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, thank you for showing us your booth. We're going to move along next to Zan. So you can go ahead and turn off your camera and your mic. Thank you. We'll see you in a bit. Okay. Hello. Welcome. Hello. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are. We spoke a little bit before that you're in your studio, which I find super fascinating to see everybody's different, how they work.
I'm here at my studio in Mana Contemporary in New York. Well, it's actually in New Jersey, but nearby New York. New York based, so it's an easy trip. And yes, trying to talk from the studio, trying to make things the closest that we can to in real life events, right?
Yes, and tell people where you're originally from. They can probably hear from your accent that you are
yes, I'm
originally from New York.
No, no. I'm originally from Galicia. Galicia is in the northwest corner of Spain. It's a small region. And but I've been living in New York for 15 or 16 years now. So I guess I qualify as a New Yorker already.
You are.
Even though I spent probably half of the year in Galicia and half of the year in New York.
Amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about what life has been in COVID for you with creating your art? Now that you've, the most of your art is watching people walk around the city. Has that changed as people are inside more?
Well, it's changed, you know, so my work happens in cities all around the world. And so what I do, as you know, it's I stayed in a particular place in the city and taking pictures of random people walking by a unique background. And then I just place one piece next to each other, like saying, you know, this is what happened while I was there. This is a small sociological portrait, a moment in a random corner. So that has changed definitely since COVID, right?
Right.
Especially in New York, which is where I live. It changed completely the human landscape of the city. For example, you know, you don't see all these workers that used to come to Midtown. They're now working from home. You know, there's a lot of people that had to leave the city, you know, due to the uncertainty caused by the pandemic. But at the same time, you can see how, you know, how resilient New Yorkers are because they continue living. They're trying to go to, you know, to do all the activities that are actually permitted when restaurants are at certain capacity. So yes, I decided to document the city during pandemic, and so I'm doing the most work I can during this time.
I loved this new work that you did, this Lemonhead series. Talk a little bit about this piece. Obviously, this isn't your normal people walking by. What exactly how did you make the figures?
So I did this basically last year. I was going to a show in London and in March, and so I decided to quickly stop in Spain. And at the very moment we stopped, everything was locked down. It was a confinement, mandatory. So we had to stay in Spain for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And so I wasn't able to go out and shoot because it was actually mandatory confinement. You only could go to the doctor or the supermarket, nothing else, and they would fine you. They would give you a ticket if you're not doing any of these activities. So to stay creative, I decided to do a time lapse in my country house in Galicia. You know, using the sticks from a lemon tree that I have next to my house, and also the lemons, as you can see. And then an old window that I had around the door. It's like a door, yeah, an old door. I painted it in red, and I used it as a background. And actually, my wife.
How big are the figures in real life? Are they as tiny as they appear in the
photo? Probably like this.
Okay.
Yeah, probably 12 inches or 10 inches.
You have quite the fashionable eye. There's so many amazing little outfits.
As much as I would like that the fashion was my merit,
I think you have a
actually was,
future.
my wife took care of most of, and my mother-in-law, we had
Oh, really? Or is
yeah,
it
we
made
were
out
the
of
three of
paper?
us there. So yeah, we were the three of us working on it, but this part is mostly them. I can say I cannot
That's
take
really
merit
fun.
for that. No.
I know, let's go to the other piece here, the Hell's Kitchen. Let me take this scene back. Or do you want to talk about your American flag series?
I didn't talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this American flag, ever since I started the process to be an American citizen, I became American. Well, you remember that the time, I think it was in 2019, and
Yes.
so I began to play with the idea of recreating the American flag using my time lapses. So just getting people, random people in the street. And then, so I live in New York, so in the West Village. So I started doing it in a red wall that is right next to my house in the West Village, which is the red stripe. It's actually a wall that I used for another piece, but these are all fresh shootings.
Yeah.
Fresh shots from that wall. And then I continued working on that, and I took people in the white wall, which is in also in the West Village, and the blue wall, it's in Chelsea. So I didn't go too far from home to do it, but it was a fascinating process for me because New York is a universe itself. So many people that you can see. You can see any kind of backgrounds just with a
Yeah.
quick look at the flag, and was my way of it's like New York, everybody's coming from outside. There's tons of immigrants, people coming from other states, other cities, other countries. So it was my way of trying to visualize the we as opposed to the I. And
Yeah.
then I decided to call it "We the People" because it's exactly what it is. We the people. In the
How do
flag.
you do your scout locations? Like this blue wall is perfect. You get the feeling that it is stars in the background, not just with the people, and it's not just blue. Or when you walk around the city, are you constantly looking and scouting for locations when you're out and about? Or
Yeah, and that's starting to be a problem, because when you go to a place, I'm walking with my wife, and she's saying,
oh,
she's even looking for walls. Oh, I saw a wall yesterday. You have to go there. And I have a legion of friends around the world shooting me, sending me images with walls. You have to come to here to, I don't know, to Congo and do this wall. Look at this wall, which I really appreciate because I've done some walls because some people, for example, the pink wall that I have is not here, but it was
oh
actually
yeah.
Nicole. It was actually Nicole, the one who told me you have to do this pink wall in LA. So I found it, and
Oh, the one on Melrose? Was
yeah,
it
the
the
one on Melrose.
oh, nice. One question that people always ask me about your work is do these people know that you're photographing them, or
No,
is it all just paparazzi style?
these are all candids. Nobody knows, and that's the whole point. That's what is interesting about me is that I don't. What I think it's interesting about this work that I'm doing is that I don't interact with people, and that's very important because I really like it to be exactly how it is. I want the work to be honest. This is what happened in a little corner of a city, of a neighborhood in the world. So I normally set up my camera across the street, and I get far from the camera and I shoot with a remote. I shoot myself, but I use a remote so
Oh,
people don't see me next to the camera and don't go around me. Some of them may see a camera in the other side of the street, but it's a camera by itself. They don't worry, they continue.
yeah.
It has to be natural for me. So you can see, this portrait of a city without buildings, without anything. It's important that it is natural. Yes.
So fun. Well, thank you so much for showing us your booth. We will reconvene at the end for some questions and answers, but this was great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, and we're gonna head to our last booth here. Kristen, you can go ahead and turn on your camera. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. We are just standing here in front of your booth and just wanted to hear a little bit about you and about your work and just hear a little bit about what inspires you.
Well, me, I'm Florida. I'm a Florida girl, Florida based, raised around art. My mother was an artist, so, and color is just a thing for me. And nature obviously is what inspires me. Yeah.
And were you now live in LA, correct?
I am in Florida.
Oh, you are still in Florida.
I am. These are just I love the West Coast. I love the desert, probably because I'm from Florida. And
there's a lot of Joshua Tree and Palm Springs and all of those different locations. Are you to Miami? I feel like you get some good colors, like you feel like you're in.
I was raised in South Florida. I'm now in Orlando, but I was raised in South Florida on the beach with, so the Miami is new for me due to COVID.
Was your mother a photographer, or was she?
My mother was everything. She was a painter. She was she made handmade pottery, and I grew up with a big kiln in my garage, and she made beads for necklaces for Saks Fifth Avenue. Actually, she was talented in everything she did, and she was a beautiful painter and kind of taught me how to paint. I started painting, and then I got into photography because I just like to capture a moment in time and kind of paint it digitally.
Well, your colors, your colors are, it's more than just capturing a moment. You do, how exactly do you get this color wash, or the lack of better term? How would you describe?
Gosh. Yeah, it's so many, just different programs. It's all digital, just different layers. I mean, sometimes like the Santa Monica picture where the arrow is next to, it was just a foggy kind of, that marine layer that's in LA. And then it would the fog would go in, the fog would go out. But sometimes there's this little pink hue. It's just whatever is inspiring me at the time. But in the morning, I always go, when I'm over in California, I go to the beach in the morning. It's so peaceful. And it's all these surfers, and the water is smooth, and then these little waves. Yeah, there was a lot of fog on that day.
You capture some really like peaceful moments and really capture like the West Coast spirit. Growing up by the beach myself, I was really drawn to these, but I love the coloration on them. It's super pretty. So did you go to art school, or did you study photography, or is this just something?
I did not. I went to school for psychology and humanities. So that's what I graduated with. But I just think growing up with a mother who was an artist, I literally was surrounded by it and her process, and she would get into different projects, and they were all over the place. And yeah, she just taught me about color. And
so what is about nature that draws you in as a subject matter versus maybe shooting portraits or people? What is it that keeps drawing you back to the ocean scenes or the desert?
Escape from real life. The desert to me it's quiet, like especially the Mojave Desert. It's so quiet, and the wide open spaces of it, the silence is just it really is just so amazing when you're there.
Yeah.
You have to go when it's not crowded. But the Sonoran Desert is not the same. It's wet. It has a monsoon season. It gets a lot more rain. So it's like this lush garden almost, you know? So they're two totally, like, that's so surreal to me, this, but yeah, it's,
the juxtaposition of both.
It's just an amazing landscape that I don't get here in Florida. I have a swamp, and it's beautiful also. So that maybe that's why I'm so drawn to it, because it's complete opposite of what I've grown up with.
Are any of your images from Florida, or are these all?
The Miami lifeguard stands. And those are because I am not able to travel. I take pictures when I travel, and I'm always so influenced when I travel, because you just don't have home. You know, you don't have all the things on your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was forced to, so this is a drive for me to go to Miami and stay and take these fabulous towers, which were put up. I wish I remembered the architect's name, but he did like the freehand hotel, and but they were put up after Hurricane Andrew. They started going up along the beaches because they were wiped out. But they're really fun, and they're just fun.
Wow. Those are super fun.
Yeah.
But how has shooting photography changed since COVID? Have you had to take a step back, or you are obviously able to do this new series? Has it changed at all besides that?
Well, just not being able to travel, enjoying my state. I've gone to a few beaches. We have some great beaches here. We also have some great like oak trees dripping with moss here in Central Florida and Old Florida. It's just really kind of steamy. And so I'm working on those. So I was forced to look at Florida and enjoy my state, which I should. It's beautiful. I mean, we're surrounded by tropical beauty, but yeah, that's how it's changed. Me not traveling.
Well, hopefully things will be opening up more and more, but it's a good time to slow down a little bit and spend time with, you know, close friends and family, and yeah, and appreciate the things around you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Without all the tourists, and it's just the locals, it's a different feeling.
Right. And there's in Orlando is tourists. So yeah, we don't have them, but yeah.
I can imagine it being really quiet.
Very
close and everything. Can you talk a little bit about this piece here?
Yes, that's this was my last actual trip. I took this in between last year. I was back to back booked with art shows. And this was in between LA and Dallas. So I went to Tucson, and this fabulous place I stayed in bordering the Sonoran Desert, and it was just gorgeous. And it was at the end of monsoon season, so everything was in bloom, and it was just so lush. And this is what this piece is. It's
a moment in time of your last traveling and enjoying. Yeah.
And happiness. It was just a fabulous, fabulous experience. That desert's beautiful.
Well, great. Well, let's bring everybody back onto the screen so we can end with a little bit of a Q&A here. So let me stop sharing my screen. Oops. All right. Is everybody back on? Let me pull up and see if we have any questions. Doesn't look like we have any. Do you guys have any questions for yourselves?
Well, I just want to say that I loved the work of my two fellow photographers, and I just wanted to congratulate them. I learned a lot. I mean, even though we talk, well, at least with Christine, frequently, it's always nice to see this kind of event, which is specifically centers on the work, and I really learned and enjoyed it a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too.
Yeah, actually, we have one question that came in for Stephanie. Someone asked, it seems that you are very drawn to light, in particular California's life. Were you drawn to it just as much when you were living in Berlin, or has California inspired you in a different way?
Well, California has completely changed my life. And when I got here, I was so fascinated with light, with the environment of it, with the way of living, that I became myself moving to California. Before in Germany, I was not able to express myself, and I didn't do really. I've hardly done anything else in my work than in California. I did a project in New York, but nothing really in Berlin ever. I just print there. That's just my post-production. But here, it's my life. It's my dream. It's everything I am.
Yeah. The California dream was calling you in.
Yeah, it's very different in Germany. In Germany, everybody tells you this is impossible, this doesn't work, you can't be an artist, who's going to pay for it? And here, everything was possible somehow. It just worked out. I created my dream. I'm living in my dream. Like, that's why my whole project is called Instant Dreams. And it's like living in a parallel universe. And the light, of course, is like amazing in the desert.
Amazing. Kristen, I have a question for you. Somebody asked, what are the first places you want to travel to when the world opens up again?
I want to, in the States, I want to go to San Francisco. And I would love to go to Paris. I know that that's a little cliche, but I want the little gray, foggy, I want to take some pictures of buildings, and those buildings are beautiful with just the stuff growing on them. And yeah,
it's already photogenic to begin with.
Yeah.
And Zon, they want to know what happens if somebody sees you taking a picture. Has it ever happened? Like, has somebody ever caught you? And if so, what was the interaction?
You know, many people ask me what I'm doing, and I openly say, you know, I'm doing this. And yeah, we have long conversations. Most of the people is really nice. Like, I have to say, sometimes you find, I mean, somebody who has a problem, and I mean, but that happens in every aspect of life.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, most of the time that brings to wonderful conversations. They normally tell you, oh, so you know this artist that does that, but you start talking, and it's really nice. Yes,
it brings a fun conversation. So you've never had any bad altercations, which is good.
Not at all.
Good. For Kristen, someone asked, your work seems to play between preserving the serenity of a moment in nature and then sometimes playing with the color to give them more life. How do you think about that?
Well, I think that's just basically what I do. I want to, I mean, our worlds are a little weird, and even without COVID, we're a little stressed, and sometimes our lives aren't so great. So nature is an escape, number one. And color is just soothing. It's just, it's, I mean, color is everything, right? You see color, that's, I think they.
On one hand, you're soothing, but then the color almost brings life there. It's a synergy of both.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Well, I think that wraps up all of the questions that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today and allowing me to see your booths. And I wish you guys all good luck in the rest of the fair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
It's fun.
Bye.
The booths are wonderful.
Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you.
It's fun.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.